There's a metal sitting inside your phone, your hip replacement, and the wings of a fighter jet. It's lighter than steel, stronger than most alloys, and it barely corrodes, even after decades underwater. But here's the strange part. This metal is the ninth most common element in Earth's crust. It's everywhere, buried in beaches, riverbeds, and even ordinary sand. So why does a single kilogram of it cost more than 10 kilograms of steel? Why does it take entire factories, weeks of processing, and temperatures hotter than lava just to produce a single usable bar? The answer involves chlorine gas, a vacuum chamber, and a process that hasn't fundamentally changed since the 1940s. This is how titanium is made. And once you see the process, you'll never look at a lightweight laptop the same way again. Titanium doesn't sit in the ground as shiny metal, nothing close to it. It hides inside two dull, dark minerals called ilmenite and rutile, mined from open pits in Australia, South Africa, and Canada. But here's where it gets interesting. Titanium has one of the strongest bonds to oxygen of almost any element on the planet. The moment it's exposed to air, it locks onto oxygen molecules and refuses to let go. That's actually why titanium resists rust so well. It instantly forms a microscopic oxide shield around itself. But that same stubborn bond is the reason it's so brutal to extract. You can't just melt the ore and pour out pure titanium. The oxygen won't release its grip. So engineers had to find a way to rip titanium away from oxygen entirely. And the method they landed on is almost violent. Turning rock into poison gas. The process is called the Kroll process. It's named after William Kroll, the Luxembourgish metallurgist who finally cracked industrial titanium production in the 1940s after years of trial and error. Step 1 sounds almost backwards if you're used to how we usually refine metals. You take titanium ore, usually rutile or ilmenite, grind it up, mix it with carbon, and then blast it with chlorine gas inside a massive reactor heated to around 1,000 degrees Celsius, about 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. At that extreme temperature, the chlorine becomes incredibly aggressive. It attacks the titanium, ripping it away from the oxygen and other elements it's bonded to in the ore. The oxygen is driven off as carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, and what condenses out is titanium tetrachloride, TiCl4, a clear, colorless, highly reactive liquid that looks almost like water but behaves like something from a nightmare. Here's the twist most people don't expect. This stuff is extremely dangerous. Titanium tetrachloride is violently hygroscopic. It reacts explosively with even the tiniest amount of moisture in the air. The moment it touches humid air, it releases thick, choking clouds of hydrochloric acid fumes and titanium oxychlorides. It can burn skin, eyes, and lungs on contact. Entire factories are built like fortresses around containing and handling it. Sealed systems, massive scrubbers, negative pressure rooms, and specialized safety protocols that treat it like a chemical weapon. One small leak, and you've got a white smoke cloud that eats through metal and concrete. So the liquid is carefully collected and purified through a series of distillations, basically high-tech fractional distillation that strips away the last traces of iron, vanadium, magnesium, and other stubborn contaminants. After this stage, you're left with titanium tetrachloride that's more than 99.9% pure. But here's the thing, it's still not metal. Not even close. You've turned the ore into a volatile chemical intermediate. The real magic, turning this nasty liquid into shiny, strong, silvery titanium metal, happens in the next step. The sponge that isn't a sponge now comes the strangest step in the entire process. That purified liquid gets pumped into a sealed vessel, completely free of oxygen, and reacted with either magnesium or sodium. This reaction tears the chlorine away, leaving behind raw titanium. But it doesn't come out as a smooth metal bar. It comes out looking like a dull, gray, porous sponge. Engineers literally call it titanium sponge. And visually, it looks closer to volcanic rock than to a metal used in jet engines. This sponge is riddled with leftover magnesium chloride and sodium chloride, which have to be washed and vacuum distilled away. Only after that does the sponge become usable. And even then, it's still not the titanium you'd recognize. Melting metal that hates oxygen. Here's where most documentaries stop, but the real engineering challenge is just beginning. Titanium sponge gets crushed, mixed with alloying elements like aluminum and vanadium, and prepared for melting. But you can't just melt titanium in a normal furnace. The moment molten titanium touches oxygen, it can react violently or become brittle and useless, so it's melted inside a vacuum, using a process called vacuum arc remelting, or sometimes electron beam melting, where a focused beam of electrons literally vaporizes a path through the metal to melt it layer by layer. This step removes any last impurities and creates a uniform metal structure. The result is poured into massive cylindrical ingots, some weighing thousands of kilograms, and this is the moment titanium finally starts to look like metal, heavy, silver, gray, solid. But it's still a long way from becoming a jet engine blade or a hip implant. Why titanium fights back during manufacturing. Those ingots get reheated and forced through industrial presses, rollers, and extrusion machines, shaped into sheets, rods, bars, and tubes. But titanium doesn't shape easily. It's notoriously difficult to machine. It generates intense heat when cut, which can dull or destroy cutting tools almost instantly. Manufacturers need specialized coolants, slower cutting speeds, and reinforced tooling just to work with it. This is part of why a titanium bike frame or watch case costs so much more than an aluminum one. The raw material is expensive, but shaping it is its own battle. For aerospace parts, titanium often gets heat-treated afterward to boost strength even further. For medical implants, it gets polished to a mirror finish so the body accepts it without rejection. Same metal, two completely different final forms. One ends up inside a jet wing. The other ends up inside a human hip. The hidden cost behind every gram. By now, you might be wondering why titanium isn't used everywhere, given how abundant it actually is in the Earth's crust. Here's the real reason. Every step, from chlorine extraction to vacuum melting to specialized machining, demands enormous energy and highly controlled environments. A single batch can take weeks to move from raw ore to a usable ingot. Compare that to steel or aluminum, which can be melted and shaped in a fraction of the time using far less specialized equipment. That's the hidden cost behind titanium's price tag. It's not the rarity of the element. It's the sheer difficulty of separating it from oxygen and shaping it once it's free. What this means for the future? There's a quieter shift happening in titanium production right now. Researchers are testing newer methods, like the FFC Cambridge process, which uses electrolysis instead of chlorine gas to pull titanium directly from its ore. If it scales up successfully, it could cut both the cost and environmental footprint of titanium production dramatically. But for now, almost every titanium part on Earth, from spacecraft panels to your eyeglass frames, traces back to that same chlorine reaction discovered in the 1940s. So, next time you hold something made of titanium, remember what it took to get there. Rock, ripped apart by toxic gas, reduced to a strange metallic sponge, melted in a vacuum hot enough to vaporize steel, then forced, fought, and machined into its final shape. A metal that's everywhere in the ground, yet nowhere easy to use. That's not just a material. That's decades of engineering, hidden inside something as simple as a watch case or an airplane wing. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. That already puts you ahead of most viewers. If you're curious about the hidden side of everyday things, subscribe for more and let me know in the comments what we should break down next.